If you are looking for a single book that could completely shake your life to its core, today's video is the answer. We invite you into the dangerous and passionate world of classics that Ryu Min read at the risk of his life during his youth. Reading in Youth by Ryu Min is not just a book review collection. It is an intellectual map that shaped an individual's soul and a record of a contemporary intellectual's struggle to answer the painful questions of youth. The author revisits 14 classics he read during his college years and imprisonment, meticulously tracing what those books meant to him then and what questions they pose to us now. The journey begins with Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment. Through the murder committed by the poor student Raskolnikov, it asks the fundamental question, what do humans live by? It continues with Lee Young-hee's Logic of a Transitional Era, which served as a lighthouse for youth yearning for the truth during the harsh military dictatorship. He also explores the driving forces of history through Marx and Engels' The Communist Manifesto, and emphasizes why individual liberty is a sacred domain through John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. The core theme of this book is ultimately decency toward humans and responsibility toward society. Through Mencius, the author questions the morality of rulers. Through Darwin's The Origin of Species, he scientifically reflects on human nature, and through Solzhenitsyn's One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, he speaks of human dignity that must be preserved even in extreme situations. The author argues that classics are not just old books, but living wisdom that provides the sharpest answers to the problems of inequality, freedom, and justice we face today. This summary, showing how the fierce contemplations faced in youth establish a person's values and determine their life's path, will serve as a powerful milestone for the lost youth of the modern era. What resonance do those passionate sentences faced by Ryu Min have for us today? From now on, we will analyze each book in depth and uncover their hidden meanings.
You know, our world feels incredibly complex, right? Kind of confusing. Sometimes it feels like you need a map just to figure out which way is up. Well, it turns out thousands of people are finding that map in a really unexpected place. Books that were written decades ago. So get this is the mystery we're going to try to solve today. A book that first came out way back in 2009, Reading for Youth, recently just shot to the #1 spot on the bestseller list. I mean, more than a decade later. What is happening? Why are people in our super fast-paced world suddenly grabbing these older ideas off the shelves? Okay, to figure this out, you have to meet the author, Ryu Min. He actually calls himself a knowledge retailer, and I love this because his whole mission is to take these huge, kind of dense ideas from history and philosophy and basically break them down for the rest of us. He makes them easy to get, he's not creating brand new theories, he's more like a curator of timeless wisdom. And the way he does it is by offering us what he calls old maps. So think about classic books, big philosophical ideas, and major historical events as maps. Maps drawn by people who had to get through some really tough terrain a long time ago. His whole point is that even though our world looks totally new, the terrain itself, the basic human problems, it hasn't really changed at all. So let's unfold his first and probably his most popular old map. That #1 bestseller, Reading for Youth, it actually started as a personal experiment. Ryu Min, who was in his 50s at the time, decided he was going to go back and reread all the classic books that really shaped him when he was young. He wanted to find out, in this new world, and as an older person, would these books still mean anything? Would they still have something important to say? And what he found was, wow, they were tackling the exact same questions that keep us up at night today. Like, why is there this crazy, relentless drive to get rich? Are we, as humans, just fundamentally selfish? Or is there something more to us? These aren't just questions for a classroom. This is the stuff we deal with in our lives every single day. And to get at the answers, he basically gets into a conversation with some of the heaviest hitters in history. I mean, look at this list. He's not just giving you a book report. He's actually wrestling with their ideas, holding them up to the light of our modern world to see if they still work. And this quote right here just shows you how powerful these old maps can be. This is from Henry George, who was asking why there's so much poverty right next to all this incredible progress. He argued that the earth is a gift for all of us. I mean, think about that. that's a 19th century idea that sounds like it could be ripped from a headline today, as we're all still grappling with massive inequality.
Okay, so let's check out his second old map, which charts a totally different kind of territory, history itself.
So, if his first book uses literature as a map for our inner lives, his second one, Reading World History Backwards, uses history to map the world around us. And the whole point of this one is to give us some balance, to challenge the simple, often one-sided stories we all learned in school. It's about reading history, well, backwards, against the grain of the official story.
He does this by diving back into these huge, world-changing events. He asks us to look at something like the Vietnam War and really question the story of it being a just war. He shows us how the Dreyfus Affair wasn't just some old spy story, but a moment that basically forged our modern ideas about injustice and why a free press is so important. Every event becomes a lesson in looking deeper than the surface. So all of this brings us right back to our big question. Why are people grabbing these old maps right now? I mean, in an age of AI, instant news, and a never-ending stream of content, why would anyone look backwards?
I think the answer really starts with a question like this one. It's a question UC Min explores using a novel about a woman whose life is just destroyed by media headlines. In our world, a world just saturated with information, disinformation, and algorithms pushing us all into our own little bubbles, this question, are my thoughts really my own? It feels more urgent and, frankly, a little more terrifying than ever. And that's the real answer, isn't it? In an age of just dizzying change, the world's basic problems have a remarkably long shelf life. The fights over economic inequality, the battle for truth in a world full of propaganda, the abuse of power, these aren't new problems. They are the exact landscapes charted in those old books. And in our politically divided, algorithm-driven world, that terrain feels hauntingly familiar. So here's the crucial thing. These books aren't just giving people answers, they're offering a toolkit for how to think in this chaotic time. They teach you how to question what you're being told, whether it's from some authority figure or your social media feed. They show you how to connect the dots between what happened in the past and what's happening now, and how to find your own bearings when it feels like the world is spinning out of control. Ultimately, the success of these books just proves this really powerful idea from E.H. Carr, who's one of the authors UC Min looks at. Reading these old classics isn't about escaping to the past. It's about starting a conversation, using the wisdom of yesterday to ask much better questions about today. Which really just leaves us with one final thought. All these readers, they've found their guide in books written a long, long time ago. So it makes you wonder, in our own lives, when we feel lost in this new, complicated world, what's the old map that we turn to for direction?